Jackson with GovExec TV. We're talking why planning is an imperative for a digital transformation that achieves decision advantage with my two guests today. Kristin Simons is director at KPMG. Ma'am, welcome.
Thank you.
And her colleague here, Carrie Meza. She is strategy and operations portfolio owner for the Financial Management, Data, and Digital Transformation Program, U.S. Navy. Heck of a title, Carrie. Welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So, Kristin, give us some context right off the bat. What is digital transformation?
Yeah, no, great question. I think oftentimes digital transformation is viewed as just applying technology to your existing business. And I think it's much broader than that. You have to look at your business, your operations, your program holistically, and you have to consider not only the technologies that exist today and that are on the horizon, but also your underlying business processes, your people, their skill sets, right? And your underlying culture. You have to bring all of that together and sort of design and re-engineer what your business can look like when you start to incorporate some of those new technologies to really realize those returns on investment that you're looking to achieve.
This was the topic recently, Carrie, of an article that you and Kristin co-authored for CHIPS. Tell us about it. What were you talking about in there?
So the article really walked through the evolution that the financial management, data, and digital transformation team has gone through over the course of the last 2 years. So the team stood up about 2 years ago, really with the intent and the purpose of really starting to use data and data tools to drive insights across the DON and the financial system specifically, and really getting after the idea of underpinning the decisions we're making inside the Navy with data and facts. And that's a different way of thinking about business than what we've traditionally done. So we really had to approach it from a very strategic and intentional approach to make sure, just to Kristin's point, that we weren't just looking at digital tools as the solution, but really rather changing the culture of the way the Navy was looking at its data.
Seemed that message went all the way to the top. Admiral Gilday quoted in the article. Why is timing so important here? Why now?
So that's a great question, Joyce. I think really at the end of the day, there's a couple of factors. One, we're creating more data than we've ever created before, right? There's more sensors, there's more tools out there collecting data. So we understand how data can be used in a way we've never understood it before. But the second piece is there's a maturity associated to the capabilities that exist today. Before, if you were going to program, say, a data application, it would take a highly technical skill to be able to do so. And today's tools really marginalize that need for technical skill. You know, we've heard it in a couple of different places. You know, the things that we're building today require a small amount of technical skill, but people will be programming in actual English in the coming years, right? So as those capabilities really start to become more natural in the organization and more user-friendly, it allows us to really use data tools to solve some of those critical problems.
You've really focused, Kristin, on organizational culture relative to digital transformation. Connect those two dots for me.
Yeah, no, great question. And just to piggyback off of Carrie's point, so that's why the cultural transformation is so critical to the overall digital transformation, right? So key to any transformation is adoption. And when you're looking at adoption, that spreading awareness is key. But underpinning all of that needs to be a culture where people feel like they can learn and they can take risk, right? All of these new tools and technologies, experiences are coming into play. And so you need a culture where people feel like they can think outside the box, try new things that they haven't done before, and really learn. They may fail, they're taking risk, right? And they may fail, but fail quickly and then apply what you've learned, right? That's really where you're going to see those that acceleration to that digital transformation. And so that's why the cultural transformation is so critical, because it's going to underpin everything else.
So to Kristin's point, one of the other things that I think is so important, and we talk about all the time when we're talking to other areas inside the Navy and other services as well, really at the end of the day, data is everyone's responsibility, right? We all touch data. And I think in a lot of cases, we've looked at data really as like data people doing data things. And that's just not the reality anymore. I mean, we are changing the way we do business and using data to truly inform ourselves on the organization, no longer following business lore, right? Really using data to inform us on those things that we're struggling with as an organization. So I think it's really important because people are really needing to step into the space where they recognize that all of us are going to touch data.
One thing that really stuck out to me after reading that report was this has been a journey for the two of you. You kind of went back in, you remapped things with the mindset of what exactly are we trying to solve here? I mean, walk me through some key factors that an organization has to deal with when they're trying to accomplish what the two of you are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one point that we want to make sure we convey is the cultural transformation, why that's so critically important. I think another important point that we want to convey is planning. Planning. I think in today's pace, right, we're so caught up and everything's quick. Information's coming at you. As Carrie mentioned, all this data is around you. It's a rush to kind of get to the next result, to get to the next report or out briefing. It's really important to just take a moment to plan. And it doesn't have to take a long time. In fact, for us, it took a day, really. We actually, in this very facility, we got key leadership team members together, and we just took a day and we said, what does the vision look like for the FMDDT program 3 years from now? And what are some of the critical factors that need to be considered in order to work towards achieving that vision? And we walked away from that understanding what that roadmap was going to look like. And with that plan, as things evolve and change outside of anyone's control, we had that mental map of, okay, well, do we need to change our course of action? Is this changing our outcome? Or is this accelerating, right? In fact, we had a conversation not that long ago where some of the things that have occurred we weren't anticipating, and that's actually accelerated our ability to help digitally transform the Navy, and that's just been a welcome change. So planning is critical.
Carrie, you mentioned earlier in our conversation data and facts. I want to focus on the first part of that, optimizing data. What are some of the biggest challenges there?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I think it's interesting to point out, right? I think everybody feels like maybe they're a little bit unique or special, right? Like my data problems are going to individualize how I get to my result. And data is a challenge for everyone, whether you're a big organization, a small organization, whether you're a public company or a private company. It is a problem for everyone. And the biggest thing I would tell you that we struggle with is really the governance around data and standardization of that data, because really your best analysis comes from data that you can pair with other data, right? Like we sit inside of the financial manager and comptroller office, and we deal a lot with financial data, but financial data is only really going to solve some of Navy's problems, not all. But when you tie that financial data to, say, acquisition data or, say, human capital data, now the insights are much greater, right? So understanding how the data is structured and having a process by which that structure is established is so important, because it allows us to be able to do the analytics that are so important to answering these questions.
So Kristin, tease out a success story, or, if you prefer, a not so successful story that really tells that story that we're talking about here, digital transformation. Who's doing it right? Who's doing it wrong?
Well, I think what's important is just taking that first step, right? I think at the onset, you think, okay, this is something I want to achieve. And you're never going to say, I have digitally transformed my business. I have digitally transformed our organization. It's an ongoing, never-ending journey. And so it's important to think from the onset, really it's just about taking that first step. Over the course of the last couple of years, we didn't know we would be here today a couple years ago. We had our aspirations, we had our goals, but we had to employ a lot of different methods and techniques and tactics and be very strategic in order to get to where we are today. And so it was just taking that initial step and then every day taking that additional step, beyond. However, something that Carrie and I have talked about is you think day to day, I'm only making incremental progress, or it's one step forward, maybe a half a step or, 2 steps back. But when we get to the end of an increment or a program year, it's just incredible how much we've been able to achieve. And so I think that's really a success story in a way that I would want to convey.
Well, the other thing I would add to that, George, is, success, not success, right? I think that's a little bit of beauty in the eye of the beholder, right? Because I really do think you could plan to have a full digital transformation of your organization and maybe just actually achieve one process change. And you could look at that and say it wasn't a successful change, but because that process change was foundational in starting down this journey that we've been talking about, maybe it didn't meet the goal and the intent that you stated at the beginning, but it did start a process and it did start a journey. So when we talk about successful, not successful, I really look at it more along the lines of impactful, right? Because I think even you could still be impactful and not successful.
Admiral Gilday uses the term decision advantage. I mean, what does that mean to our conversation?
So decision advantage is probably one of those things like readiness. Like it has about 15 different meanings, and every time you ask somebody, you're going to get a new one. But I will tell you, decision advantage is really the ability to be able to be agile, to make a change in decision in the moment, right? So when we talk about decision advantage, we're really talking about it from the ability to be able to not only meet our operational mission set, but also to be able to be faster at processing information to make the next decision than our adversaries. And so it's not necessarily only in the time of conflict do we need to have that decision advantage. When we're talking about things like limited supply chain or a decision to extend the life of a platform, we need to understand whether or not we have an industrial base that can support that. So decision lens spans across the entire mission area. It's not just in conflict, but that's really what we're getting to, is being able to make decisions, being able to be agile and transparent across the organization to make sure that those decisions we're making are the right decisions.
As we close, I love both of your perspectives on this. That 1, 2, 5 years in the future, it sounds like right now you've got your cadence. You are more agile than you were before. So what do you take on next, Kristin? And then jump in there, Carrie.
Yeah, I think, going forward, as Carrie mentioned, it's really pairing the financial data that they have access to with other data within the Navy enterprise, right? To be able to make more insightful decisions that's going to help the Navy and create that decision advantage.
So I think for me, the biggest thing that I see on the horizon is the enablement of the rest of the organization, right? We're operating inside the financial management information domain. There's a lot of other information domains. There's a lot of other data. We have to be able to bring that in. We have to be able to replicate the same kind of experience we've had inside of FMDDT across the Navy. And the only way we can do that is by sharing the information, participating with our partners to make sure that they have the skills and the capabilities they need to be able to do these things. So really enabling the rest of the organization to start to embark on their own version of digital transformation.
From Capital One Arena's Ignition Center, Carrie Meza, Kristin Simons, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.